Ilior had never faced a room so full of silent, unblinking eyes. The chamber was enormous, lined with polished metal walls that reflected the faint glow of the ambient lights. He could feel the weight of history pressing down on him. This was the first official diplomatic meeting between humans and the Xerath, a warrior species known across the galaxy for their skill in combat and their fierce temper. He adjusted his tie nervously, though he knew the Xerath probably didn't care about human fashion. They cared about respect, honor, and strength. Ilior's palms were sweaty, and he tried to steady his breathing, repeating the lines he had practiced over and over. "We come in peace. We seek understanding. We hope to work together." Simple words, yet his voice shook slightly as he spoke them aloud. The doors at the far end of the room slid open with a hiss, and she entered. Kalira. Ilior had read about her in the diplomatic files. She was a legend among the Xerath, not just for her prowess in battle, but for her unbreakable temper. Her armor was sleek, dark, and terrifyingly elegant, with subtle engravings that spoke of victories over dozens of foes. But it was her eyes that unnerved him the most, bright, piercing, and impossibly sharp, scanning the room as if she could read every thought before it even reached his brain. The room went completely silent. Ilior realized with a jolt that every other Xerath present had turned to watch him. Their arms crossed, their jaws set, all eyes on the human who had been sent to speak for his entire species. Ilior swallowed. The lines he had memorized now seemed hollow and useless. Kalira's gaze settled on him. She moved slowly, each step measured, like a predator circling prey. When she stopped just a few feet away, the air between them seemed to thrum with tension. Ilior could feel his heartbeat hammering in his ears. "You are the human who speaks for his kind?" she asked, her voice calm but commanding, carrying a subtle edge that suggested it would be wise not to test her patience. "Yes," Ilior replied, trying to sound confident. "I am Ilior, and I hope we can find common ground today." Kalira tilted her head slightly. "You hope," she said, almost as if the word itself amused her. "You speak with hope, yet you stand before warriors who demand action, not words. What makes you think your kind can survive in this galaxy?" Ilior blinked. The question was blunt, cutting straight through him. He had expected diplomacy, subtlety, not a direct challenge. He opened his mouth, but the rehearsed words froze in his throat. He had no answer, not one that sounded brave or wise. Instead, panic surged through him. Without thinking, he blurted out the first thing that came to mind. "Well, your armor, it's very shiny. And I think your eyes are kind of like stars, bright, impossible to ignore." For a moment, the room went completely silent. Ilior's stomach sank. He had expected anger, perhaps even violence. The Xerath were known to attack those who insulted them. He braced himself, ready to run or apologize profusely. Instead, something unexpected happened. Kalira froze, her eyes widening just slightly, a flicker of something unrecognizable passing across her features. The other Xerath shifted uneasily, whispering among themselves. Ilior couldn't believe it. He had said something nonsensical, and yet she wasn't yelling. She wasn't attacking. She looked shocked. "You compared my eyes to stars," Kalira said slowly, her tone a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. "And my armor shiny?" Ilior nodded quickly, hoping to explain. "Yes, I mean it's impressive, very impressive. I just panicked and that's what came out." For a brief moment, Ilior felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he hadn't ruined everything. Kalira's silence stretched, and then, very slowly, she let out a sound that could have been a chuckle. It was low, rumbling, and Ilior's stomach flipped. "I have never heard a human speak like this before," she said, her voice softer now, though still carrying authority. "You panic, and yet you speak boldly. You insult and admire in the same breath. Fascinating." Ilior blinked. I didn't mean to." "You did exactly what I would not expect," Kalira interrupted, raising a hand. "In a room full of warriors who follow protocol and tradition, you did something unpredictable. You survived by being unpredictable." Ilior's mouth opened, but no words came. He had not expected praise. He had expected death, or at least humiliation. But Kalira, the legendary warrior, was intrigued. The other Zirath began to relax slightly, though they still kept their distance. Kalira's reaction had shifted the entire atmosphere. What had been a tense, hostile room now buzzed with curiosity. Ilior realized with a thrill of disbelief that he might have a chance to turn this encounter around. Over the next hour, Ilior stumbled through the meeting, panicking and improvising at every turn. He mispronounced Zirath terms, accidentally swapped formal gestures, and even once tripped over a step, nearly falling onto the polished floor. And yet, each mistake seemed to have the opposite effect of what he expected. Kalira would tilt her head, raising an eyebrow, her expression caught somewhere between amusement and admiration. By the time the formal discussion of trade agreements and territorial boundaries began, Ilior had learned something vital. The Zirath valued adaptability and courage, even in the face of mistakes. They respected those who could think on their feet, who could survive through ingenuity rather than sheer strength. When a disagreement arose over a minor border dispute, Ilior panicked again, but this time he spoke quickly, combining half-truths with humor. If we humans can survive driving on Earth's roads without ending up in a crater every day, surely we can find a solution here too. A ripple of laughter, low and rumbling, passed through the Zirath Council. Even Kalira allowed herself a small smile, the first Ilior had seen. His heart leapt. He was not just surviving, he was connecting. By the end of the meeting, a tentative agreement had been reached. Ilior's reckless honesty, combined with his human unpredictability, had turned what could have been disaster into a strange kind of success. The Zirath would allow limited trade with humans under strict conditions, and a mutual curiosity had been sparked. As he prepared to leave the chamber, Ilior felt Kalira's gaze on him once more. She spoke softly, just loud enough for him to hear. "You are, unlike any human I have read about, bold, reckless, yet surprisingly wise. Do not waste this." Ilior nodded, unsure what to say. He wanted to tell her that he hadn't meant to impress her, that he had been terrified the entire time, but no words came. Instead, he bowed slightly, a human gesture, awkward but sincere, and left the room, heart pounding. In the quiet corridor outside, he let out a long breath. He had survived. He had not only survived but left the fiercest warrior woman in the galaxy shocked and intrigued. And though he knew the next encounter would be even more challenging, for the first time, Ilior felt a spark of confidence. Perhaps humanity's greatest strength was not weapons, technology, or speed, but its unpredictability, its creativity, and its courage under pressure. And perhaps, he thought with a wry smile, panic was not always a weakness. Ilior woke before dawn, his mind still buzzing from the events of the previous day. The memory of Kalira's shocked expression, her eyes wide in a mix of disbelief and curiosity, stayed with him. He had survived the first meeting, somehow turned panic into advantage, and even managed to impress a warrior legendary across the galaxy. Yet, despite his small victory, a sense of unease lingered. Diplomacy, he knew, was only the beginning. The communication panel on his desk flickered to life, and a calm, mechanical voice announced the message from Earth Command. Ilior leaned forward, frowning. The message was urgent. A rival alien faction, the Thren, had attacked a remote human colony near the edge of settled space. Casualties were reported, and the situation was worsening by the hour. Ilior felt a jolt of fear. The Zirath had agreed to limited trade, yes, but they were warriors. And if humans were attacked, the Zirath could help, or they could see it as a test of human strength. Either way, Ilior was about to be thrust into a situation far beyond any diplomatic negotiation. By the time the shuttle landed on the edge of the colony, chaos had already erupted. Smoke rose from several buildings, and the faint hum of energy weapons lingered in the air. Humans ran between shelters, organizing resistance, while drones scanned for threats. Ilior felt his stomach tighten. He had never been near a real battle before. This was nothing like the simulations. A Zirath warship arrived shortly afterward, sleek and ominous, its engines humming like a predator waking. Kalira herself disembarked, armor gleaming even under the pale light of the colony's sun. She moved with precision, each step confident and deliberate. Ilior felt a mixture of awe and apprehension. He knew the humans around him were counting on him to bridge the gap between the two species. Ilior, Kalira said, her voice steady but carrying an edge of command. This situation is dire. The Thrinn are not ordinary raiders. They have technology far beyond human designs. We need a plan, and I will not waste time. Ilior swallowed. He had been panicking yesterday. Today, the stakes were life and death. Yet somehow he felt a small spark of determination. I know we have limited information about their movements, but we can use that, he said, forcing himself to speak clearly. If we can predict their patterns, we can create traps, ambushes, and we can use the colony's terrain to our advantage. Kalira's eyes narrowed. You propose humans can outthink a technologically superior foe, Ilior nodded. Not outthink them completely, but adapt. Humans, we survive by improvising. We can change plans on the fly. We are unpredictable. For a moment, Kalira was silent. Ilior felt the weight of her gaze, and he knew she was evaluating him, judging if he was worth listening to. Then, very slowly, she inclined her head. Unpredictable, yes. That is something even the Thrinn cannot anticipate. With that, Ilior and Kalira began coordinating the defense. Ilior sketched rough maps of the colony's streets and buildings, pointing out choke points, potential ambush sites, and areas where humans could hide and regroup. Kalira listened closely, asking questions, adjusting her own tactics to accommodate his ideas. Over the next few hours, the colony became a hive of organized chaos. Humans and Zirath worked together, setting up defensive positions, barricades, and improvised weapons. Ilior ran from group to group, issuing instructions, calming panicked civilians, and offering suggestions to Kalira's forces. Each time he felt fear rising, he reminded himself of yesterday's lesson. Boldness and creativity could be stronger than brute force. The first wave of Thrinn scouts arrived just as the sun dipped below the horizon. Their ships hovered silently, glowing with cold, blue lights, and small squads of soldiers began to disembark. The humans' improvised barricades rattled under the pressure, but the Zirath warriors held their ground, their movements precise and deadly. Ilior ducked behind a low wall, heart pounding. He watched Kalira leap forward, energy blades slicing through the air with terrifying accuracy. Yet even as she fought, she occasionally glanced at him, waiting for signals. His unconventional strategies, decoys, traps, misleading maneuvers were working. The Thrinn were confused by the humans' unpredictability. They expected straightforward attacks, not the sudden ambushes and improvised barriers that seemed to appear from nowhere. Now, Ilior shouted, pointing to a narrow alley. Civilians had set up barrels filled with flammable fuel, ready to be triggered. A Zirath squad rushed forward, driving the Thrinn into the trap. The resulting explosion sent the enemy reeling, giving the defenders time to regroup. For the first time, Ilior allowed himself a small smile. Chaos, he realized, could be turned into advantage if used wisely. Humans thrived on adaptability, and Kalira, watching him coordinate with calm authority despite the panic she knew he felt, seemed to recognize it too. Hours passed and the battle escalated. Ilior moved tirelessly, issuing orders, guiding civilians, and improvising tactics in real time. He noticed something remarkable. The Zirath, disciplined and strong, began to trust his instincts. His human unpredictability became an asset rather than a liability. When a Thrinn squad attempted to flank their position, Elior quickly instructed a countermove that neither the humans nor Xerath alone would have thought of. The enemy was forced to retreat, confused and frustrated. At one point, Kalira came to him, wiping sweat and grime from her face. "You continue to surprise me," she said, a rare hint of admiration in her voice. "You panicked yesterday, yet today your panic has guided our forces with precision." Elior laughed nervously. "I'm not sure if it's panic or luck." "Luck," Kalira said, shaking her head, "is for the weak. You adapt. That is why humans are interesting. You survive not because of your strength, but because you think differently." The compliment struck him more deeply than he expected. The humans had long feared the Xerath as distant, almost mythical warriors. And yet here, amidst the chaos of battle, Kalira acknowledged something unique about humanity, something more valuable than strength alone. Night deepened, and the Thryn launched a major assault, their energy weapons lighting the streets with blue flashes. Elior directed civilians into secure shelters while coordinating with Kalira to hold critical positions. Every decision mattered, every move could mean life or death. Yet through it all, Elior found a strange rhythm. Fear still lingered, but so did determination. Humans, he realized, thrived under pressure. At the climax of the battle, the Thryn commander revealed himself, towering and heavily armored, demanding surrender. Kalira advanced to meet him, but Elior noticed an opening, a weak point in the enemy formation. Trusting his instincts, he devised a daring maneuver, a combination of human ingenuity and Xerath skill. "Split forces into two groups," Elior instructed, pointing rapidly at the map he had drawn in the dirt. "One distracts the commander, the other surrounds from the side." "Timing is everything." Kalira studied him, eyes sharp. "You are certain?" Elior swallowed hard. "It's risky, but it's our best chance." With a curt nod, Kalira gave the order. The maneuver was executed flawlessly. One Xerath squad lured the Thryn commander into the trap, while Elior guided human volunteers to strategic positions, using barricades and improvised weapons to confuse the enemy. In a few tense moments, the Thryn were caught between human and Xerath forces, forced to retreat with heavy losses. The aftermath was chaotic, but victory belonged to the defenders. Humans and Xerath stood among the ruins of the colony, exhausted but alive. Civilians cheered, Xerath warriors cleaned their weapons, and Elior finally allowed himself to slump against a wall, breathing heavily. Kalira approached him once more. Her armor was scratched, her face smeared with grime, but her eyes held a rare warmth. "You have proven something today," she said quietly. "Humans are not weak. You are resourceful, unpredictable, and that may be your greatest strength." Elior nodded, still trying to process the day's events. "I panicked again today," he admitted, "but maybe panic isn't always a weakness. Sometimes it helps you see things differently." Kalira's lips quirked into a subtle smile. "Perhaps. You have survived by being human. That is remarkable." As the first rays of dawn illuminated the battered colony, Elior realized something profound. Humanity's strength lay not in weapons, not in numbers, but in creativity, courage, and the ability to adapt under pressure. And in the unlikeliest of allies, the fiercest warrior woman he had ever met, he had found recognition of that strength. For the first time, Elior felt a surge of pride. The battle was won, but the real journey was just beginning. Humans had entered a galaxy full of challenges, dangers, and unknown cultures. Yet now, he understood something vital. If humans could survive the unpredictability of a single battle and earn the respect of a Xerath warrior, they could face anything the universe threw at them. And somewhere deep inside, Elior knew that Kalira's shock, her fascination, and even her rare smiles were only the beginning of a new kind of alliance, one that would change both humans and Xerath forever. Elior stood on the balcony of the colony's administration building, watching the first rays of sunlight reflect off the Xerath ships and human vehicles scattered across the settlement. The battle was over, but the tension had not completely faded. Survivors were still digging through the wreckage, assessing damage, and tending to the wounded. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. What had begun as panic and fear yesterday had turned into survival and strategy today, but tomorrow could bring new challenges, greater than any he had faced so far. Kalira approached silently, her armor scratched but her posture unbroken. She surveyed the settlement for a long moment before speaking. "You continue to surprise me, Elior. Humans are unpredictable, yes, but you are different even among your kind. You think under pressure, you act when others freeze, and somehow, you inspire others." Elior chuckled nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. "I don't know about inspiring, I just do what I can." "No," Kalira said firmly. "You lead, you take chaos and turn it into advantage. That is what warriors respect. That is what survival requires." Elior looked down at the streets below, where humans and Zirath were working side by side to rebuild barricades and clear debris. The sight filled him with a strange pride. Humanity was small in the galaxy, technologically limited, and often underestimated. Yet their ability to improvise, adapt, and think differently had made the difference today. And Kalira had seen it. That was important. A sudden alert from the colony's communication network interrupted his thoughts. A holographic map appeared in front of him, showing multiple Thryn vessels approaching from the edge of the system. Elior's stomach sank. The first attack had been a warning. Now the main force was coming. Kalira's eyes narrowed. They are relentless. And now they bring reinforcements. She turned to Elior. "We must prepare. Your ideas, your unpredictability will be needed more than ever." Elior nodded, feeling the old rush of panic, but this time tempered with determination. He gathered both human and Zirath leaders in the central command room. "Listen," he began, "we've already survived one attack. We've seen what they can do, but they expect us to react like every other race, predictable, rigid, afraid. We won't. We'll use that." He quickly outlined a plan that combined human improvisation with Zirath combat skills. Humans would set up decoys, false barricades, and ambush points. Zirath squads would use precise strikes to control key positions. And Elior would move constantly between positions, directing reinforcements, spotting weaknesses, and thinking on the fly. It was risky, but it leveraged everything humans were good at: adaptability, creativity, and courage under pressure. As night fell, the Thryn arrived in force. Their ships darkened the sky, engines humming with deadly intent. Elior felt a cold shiver, but he pushed it aside. There was no time for fear now. The first wave of ground troops descended, energy weapons blazing. Humans darted between barricades, while Zirath warriors met the enemy head-on. Elior ran along the front lines, shouting instructions, signaling ambushes, and improvising tactics as situations changed. At one point, a Thryn squad attempted to flank the human defense. Elior reacted instantly, directing a group of civilians to create a false escape route. The Thryn fell for it, rushing into a narrow alley filled with tripwires and traps, designed on the spot by Elior using materials scavenged from the colony. The resulting chaos bought crucial time for Zirath forces to strike from above. Kalira fought beside him, her energy blades flashing in the darkness. She moved with deadly precision, yet her eyes frequently met Elior's, as if silently acknowledging his strategy. She had trusted him before, but tonight she seemed almost fascinated. He was human, yes, but unlike any human she had ever encountered. Hours stretched into the night and the battle escalated. Thryn reinforcements poured in, but Elior's unpredictability kept them off balance. He ordered humans to create diversions with flares, improvise smoke screens, and decoy vehicles. Zirath squads struck at critical moments, catching the enemy off guard. Each success was small but cumulative, and slowly the Thryn began to falter. Then came the final challenge. The Thryn commander, A massive, armored figure that radiated authority appeared on the battlefield. His presence alone seemed to demoralize many of the enemy soldiers, but Ilior recognized a weakness. The commander's movements were precise, almost rigid, and he relied heavily on his subordinates to adapt in battle. Ilior quickly formulated a plan. "We split into 3 groups," he instructed. "Group 1 draws his attention. Group 2 surrounds from the flanks. Group 3 creates a distraction. Timing is everything." Kalira raised an eyebrow. "And you are confident," Ilior swallowed, feeling a pang of fear. "I am human, and humans survive because we adapt, not because we are strong. We can do this." The plan unfolded with tense precision. Human volunteers lured the commander into the center, where Zirath warriors struck from unexpected angles. Ilior coordinated movements, signaling distractions and ambushes at the right moment. The commander roared in frustration, caught off guard by the unpredictable tactics. Slowly but surely, he was driven back, forcing the Thryn forces to retreat. When the last Thryn ship fled into space, silence fell over the battlefield. The humans and Zirath gathered, exhausted but victorious. Ilior sank to his knees, overwhelmed by relief. He had survived panic, improvisation, and battle, and his ideas had worked. Kalira approached him once more, armor scratched, her hair disheveled, but her posture unbroken. She crouched beside him, her gaze steady. "Ilior," she said softly, "you have done something remarkable. You have survived what few could, and you have turned fear into strength. Humanity may be small, but your kind has something rare: unpredictability, courage, adaptability. And you exemplify it all." Ilior laughed shakily. "I panicked yesterday, I panicked today, but maybe panic isn't always weakness. Maybe it helps us see solutions others can't." Kalira smiled faintly, a rare sight among her kind. "Perhaps. Today you showed the galaxy that humans are not to be underestimated. You may be the smallest warriors here, but you think differently. And that can change everything." The humans cheered, celebrating survival and victory. The Zirath joined them, more reserved but still acknowledging their allies. Ilior felt a surge of pride, knowing that humanity's ingenuity and courage had saved the colony. Not technology, not numbers, but thinking differently had made the difference. As dawn broke, Ilior looked at Kalira. "Will the Zirath trust humans more after this?" he asked. She tilted her head, considering. "Trust is earned. Today you earned respect. Tomorrow we see if humanity can continue to prove itself. But know this, your kind is unique. Unpredictable, and in the galaxy that is a rare and dangerous strength." Ilior smiled. He had survived panic, won battles, and earned the respect of the galaxy's fiercest warrior. More importantly, he had discovered a truth about humanity. Their greatest weapon was their mind, their ability to adapt, to improvise, and to act boldly when everything seemed lost. The colony began to rebuild, humans and Zirath working side by side. Ilior moved among them, offering guidance, encouragement, and a steady hand. He felt the weight of responsibility, but also the thrill of possibility. The universe was vast, full of dangers and wonders, but humanity had a place here, because they were different, because they were bold, and because they survived where others would falter. Kalira watched from a distance, her expression unreadable but her gaze lingering on Ilior. Somewhere deep inside, she recognized something remarkable. This human, who had panicked yet acted boldly, had changed her perception of his species. And perhaps in the long run, humanity would change the galaxy, not through brute force, but through unpredictability, courage, and the audacity to survive. As the sun rose higher, casting light on the rebuilt streets and the faces of survivors, Ilior allowed himself a rare moment of calm. He had panicked, he had been afraid, he had been uncertain, but he had faced everything and he had emerged stronger. He had proven something vital. Humanity's strength lay not in what they wielded, but in who they were. And somewhere across the stars, he knew more challenges awaited. But for the first time, Ilior felt ready. He was human, and humans did not give up.